Hey, welcome back you guys. Today we're going to go over the basics of hanging drywall. I'm going to take you over a couple walls of this place and show you some of the do's and don'ts. As for ceilings, unfortunately we've already hung all the ceilings, but I do have videos. So I have a short I just filmed about attaching a cleat to the wall, and that will help you hang a ceiling by yourself. And there's also different types of cleats you can make once you get into the center of the ceiling, because a simple wall cleat doesn't work anymore. I've got a video about that you guys can check out. So there's plenty of stuff that you can see to get an idea of how to hang ceilings. The easiest way is definitely to rent a lift. You will get the best work done that way. If you have a big ceiling to do, just rent a drywall lift. Trust me, you'll thank yourself later. But today we're going to be focusing on walls and just some of the things I do to help the job go faster. So let's get right into it. Well, one, we are hanging on wood frame construction, so I'm using 1¼ coarse thread drywall screws, and we are hanging 1/2 inch drywall. So that is more than adequate. If you're hanging 5/8 drywall, you might want to step it up to 1 5/8. And if you're hanging it on steel stud, you need to use fine thread screws. So keeping it real simple though, 1¼ coarse thread on wood framing. Here you might need a chalk line. I haven't been using any nails whatsoever for this job. On this side, so this is just your typical drywaller's pouch. I have a utility knife. I use these ones because the blades are stiffer than a snap-off Olfa. Those are fine though. You can keep a nice sharp tip, but you will be breaking it a lot. I change this about 3 times a day when I'm hanging board for a full day. Got a nice brand new Fat Max, the old cheese grater. That is for rasping the rough edges. Most of the time it's actually not necessary though. It's usually only when you're butting up against the surface and you need it nice and straight so that there's not too much of a gap. And pencil, of course, jab saw. And I do keep a drywaller's hatchet in here. I don't use it all that much, but it's good to have a hammer. And sometimes this part can come in handy for a lever if you need to get it in somewhere and pry a sheet over. So it's not useless, but honestly you could have a regular hammer in here too, as long as you're not using nails. If you're actually using nails, you need a drywall hatchet because it has a concave face, which will help dimple it a little bit better. I do have one, and I can show you guys really quick. So let's find a bit of drywall. So it leaves just a little bit of an indent, but the problem with doing this, and I can hear it already, there's a blister under there. Modern drywall is very porous, like an aero bar. It's called aerated. So it doesn't take a strike with a hammer very well without delaminating. See how that paper is now delaminated there? So really that's why there's no point in using a drywall hammer with modern drywall anymore. It just delaminates it. Anyways, let's get to hanging some walls here. So when hanging drywall, one of the reasons we do ceilings first is because your next sheet is going to then, like, it gives you a lot of room. You can cut this 1/4 inch short here, even up to 3/8, and still be able to hide the gap there. So that's why we do the ceiling first, and then also the walls will support the ceiling too, especially when you get something like this where there's just not enough to fasten there. So having this here helps a lot. So that's why we do ceilings first. And then the next thing you want to know is you want to start in one corner of a room and work your way all the way around. And the reason, once again, is to hide the edge and get a tight fit. So I can get a much tighter fit on a corner here if I'm always sliding it against like that. So I work my way around the room, and it's only on the last corner where we have to butt up new drywall to new drywall. And that can be kind of hard. It's not uncommon for me to have a little gap there on that last sheet because it's really hard to get a perfect fit. And that brings me to probably the biggest mistake that carpenters and people who aren't familiar with drywall, homeowners DIY, make, is they always try and get it too tight. So I cut everything about 1/4 inch loose, and then that way it ensures that it's always going to fit, because when you cut it too tight and you try and jam that in, you're always going to blow out the corners. It'll be breaking all the time. So I can tell when an inexperienced person has hung drywall, not just because they've installed all the screws improperly, but also because there will be blown out corners everywhere from them trying to get too tight of a fit. So that being said, let's get a measurement here. So I'm butting up right here, pinching my tape there. So if I read 91 1/4, that will give me about 1/4 inch of space. So that's what we're gonna cut our first sheet at. Okay, 91 1/4. Where are we? Right here. So I make a little mark with my knife and the good old T-square. People love to slash themselves cutting drywall with a T-square. And the reason they do that is because they put their hand here and they go down and they just lacerate themselves savagely. So when you're using a T-square, the first thing you want to do is gently place your foot on it. A lot of time people will put their foot on it and they won't realize that they're kicking it out of square. So your offcut is not going to be square if you're not careful here. So I very gently place my foot down there like that. And I always start from the bottom, go to about there, come down. Always put this thing like this. Noobs always put it like this, falls over, it's going to go out of square. Okay, for this part, nice big 12-foot sheets, just lift, snap. I'm resting it on my unprotected skate shoe foot. Yes, I am not wearing steel toes. I should be, but yeah, no, I have no excuse. Okay, let's tack this sheet up and then we'll explain a little more why we are doing it this way. So, oh, of course I'm struggling here. It's always on camera that I struggle more. Okay, so I'm pushing tight to this corner, but because it's not square, it really can't get any better than that. Okay, so I reached into my pouch, grabbed a screw, my left hand. Now you don't need much for a sheet that's 8 feet or less to hold it in place. Just a couple of weld-placed screws, and it's more or less doing its job, but just to be sure, we'll get one here. And if we look here, you can see there's a 1/4 inch. Nice gap, no blown out corners. Yeah, that's good. There's a little gap here because this wall is out of plumb this way, or the ceiling is something, but you know, that's the best we can do. Okay, and I'm going to show you how we deal with these openings. So one of the ways is you can cut up it with a drywall saw. I like to use full pieces here because a lot of people will they'll chunk this whole thing in, right? They'll do one square here, they'll do one rectangle here, and then they'll chunk in this piece. And why I don't like that is when you put joints at the tops of your doorways like this, how many times have you seen a crack there, right? You're guaranteed to get cracks along that line if you place a joint there. The cracks will follow the path of least resistance, and you put it at the top of a door, it's going to do it. So that's why we always use a nice full board like this. And now I gotta get my mask on real quick because we are going to use a router, of which I have 2 kinds. I have this one for routering out small things, and I have this one, look at the difference in the bits. This one has a very small bit, and this one has like a 1/4 inch bit. So this one's for hogging out material. Okay, so you might be wondering, why did I cut that last edge? The reason is I find a cut edge from a knife more usable. Look how dusty and rough these edges are. Right, they're very rough. So when you're taping the board later, you can't just tape onto something like this. It's too fluffy. It doesn't adhere properly. So you end up having to carve it out like this. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. So if I had to cut all 3 edges, I would have 3 not very usable edges. Whereas in this case, I have 1, 2 usable edges left if I have some patches or something to do. So we are only tacking the walls, and the reason we're only tacking them is because if I show you guys how long it takes to screw off a whole sheet, while it might not be super long in terms of getting it done, it will be very long in terms of attention span. I made sure to screw off all of these so that I can find it when I bury it with this sheet, right? You can't see the studs anymore. So if you do it all along this edge, you can still find them. Okay, so this is easy. We know this box is right here. We got a panel lift here, and I haven't measured this. We don't need to, right? The less time measuring, the better. Pulling your tape out and taking measurements is not only time consuming, it's also really mentally draining. And once you've hung enough board, you know that the enemy to your speed is getting mentally drained. So I've just lifted it up with that, it's a simple lever down there, a panel lift. And we're gonna go right here. Don't wanna screw by this box yet. That's enough to stop it from sagging. Now we're gonna router this out. If it was in the middle of the sheet, I would have drawn a line where it is, but I can see where this one is, and I know it's right here. So I usually go in the left side. I just have a pattern, a routine. I go close to the left side, boom, boom, boom. There we go. So we can throw a couple of screws in just to have it tacked in place before I cut it. Also, because we're going to continue this wall, I need to finish screwing it off. Because you don't want to bury the edge . Similar to not burying these studs so you can't find them, you don't want to bury, sometimes you don't have much material here to screw into. So if you bury it with your next sheet, then you're going to struggle to put these screws in. So I'll make sure any edge that's going to get buried by the next sheet gets tacked off. While we're here, let's make use of these offcuts. So I'm probably going to come back later with my corded drill. I only use my cordless one for tacking stuff up or small jobs. It doesn't have the power that I like to have. It's great in that it's cordless, but it's also, it's lacking a little. I thought you guys might want to see what we're doing here. So just running the knife along that back edge. And then we just very lightly. So this is something I haven't gone over yet, but you don't need to cut drywall very much. People are always like, trying to cut through it. Like, you don't have to do that, right? Drywall breaks as soon as it has a weak spot. As soon as it has a weak spot, like I'm cutting very gently, right? It's so easy. So you're gonna have much straighter, nicer cuts if you just, that was like pushing the limits of how little, but it'll still go. So you do not need to be pushing really hard. That's the other reason people slash themselves, is they're pushing really hard. So when they slip, they slash themselves. So gentle cuts, right? That's all that's needed. Keep a sharp blade. This one's not, it should be changed, but it's still enough to cut it. Let's tackle this little patch real quick. So first off, I added this piece of wood here. This is just a free floating piece of wood that's about 1.5 inches wide. Screw here, 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 here. Now it's nice and solid and we won't have a floating edge. It's very important that every edge of the drywall is supported whenever possible. We're gonna make it a little small. It's very likely that you guys might be doing a lot of patches, so it's good to know. All right, 20 5/8 I think will be pretty good. 20 5/8, this patch is not square, so I'm gonna make a mistake on purpose. Okay, so 20 3/4, this is the slide cut. 20 3/4 right here. I've made my little mark and I'm putting the blade right here and I'm gonna pinch it really hard like this. You have to keep tension on it outward or it will wander. And this takes a lot of practice, honestly. Okay, it's a simple cut. It's not as straight as it could be, but it works. 18 1/4. It'll be good enough for the taper to fix it. So same thing. I know I'm the taper. My wife said, you're the taper. That's the joke. Okay, simple cut. Don't need to cut hard. I like these pants. I don't want to slash them. Okay, it is this piece. So now I'm going to make a common mistake, which is putting, if I cut it to the right dimensions, I'm going to make a mistake, which is putting a bevel. So this is something a lot of people don't do when they're starting out, is putting bevel to bevel and butt joint to butt joint. So this edge, let's try and find a way to show it. So if you see that line, it dives down, and that is for, you see that right there? There's a little gap. That's for hiding the tape so that this portion of the wall ends up really flat. If you look at this, you can see that there is space for tape and mud. So this portion of the wall ends up flat. That's known as a flat joint. Butt joints is when you have two of these unbeveled edges meeting, and those you have to just build them out wide. There's a couple things I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna make a mark right here and right here. That's where that guy is. And now we're just gonna get to screwing this in. Patches is where you lose most of your time. Definitely lose most of your time. And yeah, because this thing is so out of square, it's nowhere near what we want. And I'm gonna do this the lazy way. There. Oh, shouldn't have done that one. It's pushing the limits. This one. I didn't even screw it in all the way. So we can see this is uneven. What we're gonna do. That's good. Now we're gonna follow, and yes, it's fuzzy. It's not perfect, but that was easier than just cutting it outside of here. So now we got this guy. Line, right? And where else is it out of square? Here. Taper will fix it. Sometimes you just gotta get it done. You can pre-fill that. And honestly, I did that for dramatic effect. Ugh. That's what happens when you miss. You gotta pull out the missed screws. In reverse, I put it here and I just pull on it. So. So I know this looks big and awful and you're like, how do you fix that? It's actually really easy. You just pre-fill it and put a tape over it. It's not a big deal. If I came to a job and I saw that all over the place, I'd be pissed. But like one little bit like that, no problem. But yeah, I did that for dramatic effect. I could have been much more gentle and it would have looked prettier. Let's make a mark because we're gonna do this a harder way. We're gonna do a full piece, a rip. Here's another thing I do. I always measure top, middle, bottom to see what it's doing. 27 3/16, 27 3/16, and 27. So honestly, I'm just gonna cut. You know what I do in this case sometimes when it's uneven by like a 1/4 inch or more, is I will cut it wide. So we're gonna cut it at 28 1/2. So the first thing we're gonna do is cut this down to 8 feet. All right, 8 foot, because having these nice 4-foot squares is actually really useful. Now, same thing, I'm gonna measure from the bottom though, because 28 1/2, that gives me the smaller rip here. So the closer my hands are together here, instead of like 28 1/2 down here, right? closer my hands are together, the less this will move and the smoother my cut will be. And this is not our piece, this is an offcut. This is our piece. Push to the side, pushed up. And I chose the beveled edge along here because it's straighter. And whenever I'm cutting the edge, I like to have it a little more supported because when you cut it and it moves, you can get a not very straight line. So there's going to be less pre-filling and less thinking, honestly. So I didn't have to do any chalk lines like tapered cuts. I was able to just, once again, I'm eliminating the thinking out of it. Okay, so another thing you can do really quick, if you don't want to eyeball these, we already know we got a line right here. So we can do the same trick with our pencil. All right, we're just gonna go like this. And that'll give us a rough line. Okay, next let's get the full speed drill going here. Everybody loves cords. It's all tangled from getting dragged around too much. This is an intentional tangle. So this is something I do with my corded drywall drill. I'll show you that real quick. So I have them like this and I just tie a quick little hitch in it. And I try not to have too much slack, just enough slack to be able to attach the ends. Like that. And so now I can yank on this thing and it's not going to come apart when I'm trying to screw a ceiling. Instead, what it's going to do is it's going to get caught on my bench. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so here's something a lot of people don't know. When I see beginners using drywall drills, I will see them like, so that's how a beginner uses a drywall drill. And how these are intended to be used is revved up to full speed. I have a brand new bit in here and it's been doing that a lot. It's super annoying. It was doing that when I was hanging a ceiling the other day. So it might do that a couple more times. But yeah, that's because it's got an almost brand new bit in it and it takes time until it wears out. So that sound is not actually the screw stripping like you might think it is. It's actually the clutch engaging. And if you don't push a drywall drill fast enough, the clutch won't engage. Okay. Yeah, it's horrible. My wife's filming this with no earplugs. I have none in it either. So if you don't push hard and fast enough, the clutch just gets stuck, right? It's like when you're driving and you're, what do you call that? Riding the clutch or whatever. And so you're just always burning it. So it's got to be quick, right? So how we do this is there's this little button right here. And I'm going to show you guys this one wall at regular speed. And then you'll understand why I'm just tacking these sheets and not showing you screwing off all the sheets. Only on YouTube. It's not bad. You get the idea. Let's hang a sheet in the stairwell just for fun, and then I think the video is kind of done. Okay, screw spacing though. This one's important. Most of the time, people will just do 2 screws per stud. That's really common. So basically, if you don't have a line, you just kind of got to eyeball it. So you can see it's roughly 16 inches apart. I haven't been doing that though. On my jobs, I feel like if one of your screws is sunk too deep, this is something we haven't even gotten into. Screw depth is so important. So I'm going to show you around where a door jamb would be, but if you have your drill, so this is the depth adjustment, if you have it set too far, this one's actually so important, I'm surprised we haven't covered it yet. Once it's torn the paper like that, the paper is basically your holding power. This is why Europeans laugh at us, because we build our houses out of paper. This screw, whenever I do that, whenever a screw sinks too deep, I put one next to it. And I don't usually take those out anymore. I just make sure there's one that's actually doing the job right next to it. So it has to be below the surface so that when you're coating it with mud, it covers. It can't be clicking. Okay, it's now set 5 clicks backwards. You can't coat that properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just right. So your paper. So even this one right here, if I see one like that, I will usually put another one that's doing its job right there. Okay, but getting back to spacing, I like to do 3 screws in the field. This part's called the field. And so I'll just split the sheet. So there's a downside, and the downside is I do miss a little bit more because I'm eyeballing further away, whereas when I just go like boom, boom, I tend to hit them a bit more, but I just know that when one of your screws is not installed properly and you only have 2 in the field per stud, I don't feel like it bodes well long term. I think that you're gonna get more screw pops if you're only doing 1, 2, 3. And this brings me to another subject, which is adhesive. In Western Canada, we don't use adhesive because we have a lot of vapor barrier, which is plastic on the walls and ceiling. So we would only be able to glue interior walls, and it's actually the exterior walls of the house that typically have the worst problems with screw pops. So yeah, we just do it like this, drywall bare onto the studs and rafters and joists, and it's good enough. It works. Okay, I thought it would be fun for you guys to watch me struggle with a sheet in the stairwell really quick. So how are we gonna do that? I'm probably gonna have to walk through here. And then it helps being able to slip through small spaces. We got a totally inadequate 2x8 plank here, screwed into the studs here on a little ledger. This is an OSHA special. We don't say OSHA in Canada. We have different ones for BC. I'm gonna stop talking. I feel like I'm tempting fate by saying dumb things like that. Okay. So the hardest part is making sure that you didn't let it sag while you were messing around with screws and stuff. But I didn't, because I'm a boss. I should have marked the studs, but I didn't. Okay, there's a sheet in the stairwell. I could tack the next one in place, but remember, get all these screwed off first so you can find them later. That one's so twisted, I'm not even gonna screw to it. So spacing right here is a little under 24. 24 inches is kind of the maximum spacing. On ceiling, you want to use ceiling board if you have, or 5/8 if you have 24 inch spacing. But right here, we've only got like a 20.5 inch spacing. So because this stud is so twisted, I'm probably not even going to screw to it. Okay, I think I'm going to go over. I think that makes the most sense here. This is going to be a fun one. I am of limited space, but I can do it. It's not the first and it won't be the last sheet of drywall I have to hang in a weird spot. I mean, I could move this, but I want it set up so I can do that next wall there. And taking out 2 screws is way too much work. Okay, that's the only thing I have to router out. Good. This actually isn't that bad. I'm in a pretty comfy spot here. Oh, that's totally supported on that end. Beautiful. It's like having a helper almost. This is tricky because I can't fit my hand in between the studs, so I have to pinch my fingers to get this one up. Okay, here the tricky part is just making sure that the joint is good. Yeah, I got my finger pinched in between this. There we go. Pull it up tight. Oh, still did his job. Okay, that wasn't so bad, was it? Now we gotta router this guy. Yeah, what do we have? A little baby gap there. I can live with that. So we can see this one, which is great. And a lot of you might be going like, Ben, I don't have a router. I have to use a keyhole saw. I mean, that's your problem. Get a freaking router. But seriously, one more tip for anyone who doesn't have a router. When you're measuring out your boxes, just measure it on the small side, because I've found that like once you get the sheet up, your measurements are never where you wanted them to be, and this side will be too tight and this side will be too open. So if you intentionally cut the box a little bit small, you'll find that 1 or 2 of the sides is usually right where it's supposed to be, and you can just like quickly knife out the other part of it. So that's a quick tip for anyone using a keyhole saw for doing all of the installs. But I mean, like, I wouldn't do this job if I didn't have a router. It's one of those tools that makes it like so much faster. And it did make me think of one last thing. So the key to making sure you're getting tight fits on all of your boards is, like I said, starting in one side and working all the way around so that you're always sliding the sheet over. And the second thing is only measuring from the same 2 sides. So where some people get into trouble is like they'll pull from this side to get, you know, the length of the sheet, and then they'll pull from this side to get the box. And the problem is, especially because you need a 1/4 inch gap to be able to get the sheet in properly, one of your sides is going to be wrong if you're measuring from 2 sides. So like I only measure usually from the sheet that I'm butting up to, and I only measure from the wall that I'm butting up to. So that can take a little bit of practice. I wish I explained it more earlier on some of the other sheets, but that's definitely one of the keys to measuring stuff well, is always measure to the surface you're butting up to, and always measure from the same two sides, and the straightest sides ideally. So, okay guys, that's about, I think, all I can tell you. Like, there is more than enough to help round out some of your hanging skills and help you get a better job. I still have, I mean, at least 25, 30 sheets to hang here, and I'm hanging it alone because I'm filming. But as soon as the camera's off, I have a helper who wants to remain off camera who's gonna start hanging this with me, so it's gonna go a lot faster. 2 people hanging is definitely the way to go. So yeah, as much as I'd love to film more of this on camera, in order to get the job done, it's time to turn it off. I hope you guys are doing really well, and I hope you got a lot of useful things out of this video. Okay, and one last thing, you guys, if you've been watching the videos for a while and you haven't subscribed yet, consider it. It's not gonna hurt. You'll be okay. And it does help me out. So thanks again for watching. I hope your project's going really well, but I hope you're doing even better. Till the next one.